So this is a video on the graphing sine worksheet, the first one that we're going to be doing. And again, when I do these videos, I do want these videos to be kind of, if you're stuck and you need a little extra help, not that you just watch it and blindly do these. I want you guys to see if you can do them and come back and check. So on this, the amplitude, if I'm doing this first one, this is just my basic sine graph. So the amplitude is going to be 1. It's always the number that is in front of your sine. And so there's nothing in front of our sine. So my amplitude is 1. My vertical shift is when I have something adding or subtracting here. There's nothing. So that's going to be none. My period is normally 2 pi. But it's 2 pi over b when there's anything going on that's not just a basic sine graph. Your phase shift in this case would be what's being added or subtracted in parentheses with your x. Nothing's happening, so this is going to be none. So when I do this, I like to, and again, you don't have to do this, I like to draw in my my vertical shift. So I kind of focus that's where my zeros are going to be. So this is going to be a little thicker. This is where my zeros should always be. This is the middle. Okay. My period is, it's not my period. So my amplitude is 1. So I'm going to go 1 above. Oops. And so in this case, if I go 1 above, I'm going to be here. That's going to be 1. And 1. Okay. And I know I'm going to be going from 0 to 2 pi for this. So when I'm doing this, for your sine, remember, it's always going to be, if I'm doing this on a unit circle, okay, it's going to be, let's make this a little darker. It's going to be this point here, which is going to be our 0. This point here, which is going to be a 1. This point here, which is going to be a 0. This point here, which is a -1. And then back to here, which is a 0. So I'm graphing 0, 1, 0, -1, 0. I start and stop at my zeros. Halfway in between here is my 0. And then in between my 2 zeros, I'm going to have my high at 1 or my low at -1. Okay. So in this case, since this is just my basic sine graph, I am going to be starting at, going from 0 to 2 pi, start and stop at 0, halfway in between the 0. Halfway in between those, I'm going to be up at 1 and down at -1. And then this is going to be my graph. And you only have to do 1 period of it. On the next one, this one, my amplitude for this one is going to be 2 because of this. My vertical shift is going to be +1 because of this. I'm going up 1. My period, there's nothing in front of my x, so this is still going to be 2 pi. And my phase shift is going to be none because there's nothing that's being added or subtracted in parentheses with my x, so this is going to be none. Okay, and so let me get my vertical shift is at 1. So I'm going to come here to 1 and I'm going to go up 1. Okay. Let me make sure I get all the way across my graph here. So I'm going to go all the way here at 1. At least want to get to my 2 pi there. And then my my vertical shift, I'm sorry, it was 1. My amplitude is 2, so I'm going to go 2 above that. So if I'm at a height of 1, I'm going to be going 2 above that. So I'm going to be up at 3. Okay, so I'm going to be up at 3. And I'm going to go 2 below that. So I'm going to be at 0 and then at -1. Okay, so that I'm going to be down here at -1. Okay, so that's kind of my high, my middle, my low. Now, when I'm doing this, since there is no phase shift, and I am starting at, which means I'm starting at 0, and my period is 2 pi, I am going to be starting at here. This is going to be my 0, air quote 0. I'm going to be ending at 2 pi. That's also going to be in my air quote 0. It's going to be on my vertical shift. Halfway in between is going to be 0. And then halfway in between those, because of my 2 in front, my amplitude being a positive 2, halfway in between these, which is here, I'm going to be 2 above. And then halfway between these, which is here, I'm going to be 2 below. And that is my graph. Okay. On number 3, on this one, my amplitude is, I got a -1 here. So that's going to be important. I want to pay attention to that -1, but my amplitude is always the absolute value. So it's going to be a positive 1. This -1 at the end means it's going to be shifted 1 down. Now, in this case, I have this 2 in front of my x. My b is 2, and our period is equal to 2 pi over b. So over here, I'm going to take 2 pi over 2, which is pi. And what that 2 means is within 2 pi distance, I'm going to have 2 complete cycles of my sine. Okay. So each of them is a pi as a period. Phase shift, again, nothing happening here besides multiplying by the 2. So this is none. Okay, so that being said, let me get my my vertical shift is down at -1, so I'm going to draw in at -1. My amplitude is 1. Again, it was a positive 1, but it is 1. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go down 1, and then I am going to be starting at 0 because there's no phase shift. Okay. And then I'm going to be ending at pi. So my whole graph is going to be from here to here in terms of the x direction. Okay. So at 0, I'm at 0, air quote 0. And I end at 0. And halfway in between, I'm 0. And then halfway in between these, this is a negative. So instead of going up first, it's going to go down first. So I'm going to be going down 1. And then over here, halfway between these, I'm going to be doing my up. And that's going to be my graph. Okay, on number 4, on this one, again, we have to pay attention that it is a negative, but the absolute value of a -2 is 2, so my amplitude is 2. My vertical shift is going to be +1. My period here, my b is 3, so I'm going to go 2 pi over 3, so my period is 2 pi thirds. And my phase shift is again none. So since my phase shift is none, I'm going to be starting at 0 and going 2 pi thirds. That's going to be my graph. So let me get my vertical shift in here. So my vertical shift is going to be +1. So I'm just going to move this for a second. So +1. Okay, and I'm just going to write that that's 1. My amplitude is 2, so I'm going to be going 2 above that. So I'm going to be going up to 3. So that's up at 3, 2 above that. I'm going 2 below. So that's again going to be -1. And then when I'm graphing this, again, because my phase shift is none, I'm going to be starting at 0 and going to 2 pi thirds. Okay, so I'm going to be starting at 0. And I'm ending at 2 pi thirds. So those are going to be my zeros. Halfway in between these is going to be a 0. And then halfway between these, I'm either going to be going up 2 or down 2. And so because of this negative here, I'm going to be going down first. Okay, so I'm going to be going down. So I'm going to be going down here, down 2. And then here, halfway between these, I'm going to be going up 2. And then I'm going to connect this. Okay, I'm going to connect this. And I end up getting this as my sine graph. Okay, so on number 5, on this one, my amplitude is going to be 3 because of this 3 here. I do not have a vertical shift because nothing's going on out here. So this is going to be none. My period is going to be found by looking at the number in front of my x. If it's in parentheses or outside parentheses, it's still your b, it doesn't matter. So my period is going to be 2 pi over 2, which is pi. And then I do have a phase shift. So for my phase shift, I want to figure out what makes this 0. What makes this 0? That is what my phase shift is going to be. And so when I work this out, I am going to subtract pi. I am going to divide by 2. So I'm going to get a negative pi over 2. Okay, so no vertical shift. So it's going to be, oops, let me grab this. Okay, so no vertical shift. So it's going to be here. My amplitude, let's make this a little fatter. That's a little too. My amplitude is 3, so I'm going to be going up 3. So I'm going to be up at 3. This is at 0, and I'm going to be going down to -3. And then I need to figure out where I'm starting and stopping on this. So on this, let's see. I am starting at negative pi halves. Okay, that's my start. That's where my phase shift is. I am going to go pi away. And when I work that out, that's really negative pi halves. So again, this is my period. I am going to be going 2 pi halves, which is pi over 2. Okay. And so I'm going to, and that's going to be my end. Okay. So I am going to be starting at negative pi halves, and I'm going to be ending at pi halves. So when I'm graphing these, I'm going to be starting at a negative pi halves. That's my start. So that's going to be my 0. Let me get a little bigger point. I am going to be ending at pi halves. That's going to be the end. Halfway in between these, I'm going to be also at a 0. And then halfway in between these, I'm going to be going up 3. halfway in between these, I'm going to be going down 3. So again, halfway in between these, I'm going to be going up 3. So it's going to be here. And halfway in between these, I'm going to be going down 3. So it's going to be here. And then that is going to be my graph. Okay, on number 6, on this one, my amplitude is going to be 1/2. I'll get it a little darker. 1/2. My my vertical shift is going to be this +2. My period is going to be 2 pi over this b, which is 2. So 2 pi over 2, which is pi. So my graph is going to be pi distance. And then my phase shift is what's going to make this 0, which happens to be pi. Okay, so again, let me just kind of, this is giving me this. Okay. And this came from this 2 here, just so everyone understands where I'm getting these. So when I'm graphing this, my vertical shift is 2, so I'm going to be going up to 2. My amplitude is 1/2, so I'm going to be going up 1/2. So so 1/2, so that's actually going to be here. And go down 1/2. And then in terms of my points, and I got to figure out where I'm starting and stopping. I'm starting at pi. And again, the pi I'm starting at is that pi from my phase shift. I am going to be adding pi on, and that pi is my period. And I am going to end up at 2 pi. So my graph is going to start at pi and end at 2 pi. Okay, so I'm going to start at pi. That's my start. I'm going to end at 2 pi. Halfway in between is going to be my 0. And halfway between those, I am going to be going up 1/2. Just making sure it was starting up first. I'm going to be going up 1/2. And then over here, down 1/2. And this is going to be our graph. Okay. Okay, on number 7. On number 7, my amplitude is a 1/2. My vertical shift is also a 1/2. Now you got to be careful with your period, and we're getting that period because of this particular 1/2. So I'm going to take 2 pi divided by 1/2, which is 2 pi times 2, or 4 pi. That's the length of our cycle. Phase shift, none. So I'm going to start at 0 and end at 4 pi. Okay. And my vertical and shift is at 1/2. So here, let me just kind of get this in the picture. So I am going to be starting at 1/2. So this is going to be, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, so this is where my 1/2 is. And we're going to be going up 1/2 because of our amplitude. So I'm going to be going up 1/2. So this is a really condensed graph here. And I'm going to be going down 1/2. And then I'm going to be starting this graph at 0 because my phase shift is none. And I'm going to be going for pi. So when I'm plotting my points, okay, I am going to be starting at 0 and ending at 4 pi. Okay, so I'm going to start here at 0. I'm going to end over here at 4 pi. And then halfway between 0 and 4 pi is here, which is 2 pi. That's my other 0. Then halfway between these, which is pi, I'm going to be up a half. And then halfway between these, I'm going to be down a half. And then I'm going to connect these points. So then we just need to connect it. Let's see. Zoom in a little bit. And there's our graph. On number 8. So on number 8, for this one, our amplitude is going to be 1. Our vertical shift is going to be -2. Our period is going to be 2 pi over 4, which is pi halves. Our phase shift is going to be what makes this 0. So that is going to be an x equal, well, sorry, I don't need to write the x there. It is going to be a -3 pi halves. So let's see, we are going to be starting at -3 pi halves. We're going to be going pi halves away. And so we're going to end up at -2 pi halves or -pi. Okay. Now this one here is actually going to be off of our graph slightly, but we can manage. Okay. Or maybe we can manage. Okay. So for this, or you can redraw it if you want. So for this, let me get my amplitude. I'm sorry, my vertical shift, which is at -2. So it's going to be down here. And let me just extend it. Okay, so it's going to be down here. And then my amplitude is 1. So I'm going to be going 1 up. Oops. And I'm going to be starting at a -3 pi halves and ending at -pi. So let me just kind of get this labeled in here. So looking at this, let me just extend this out. And let's just say that this is my -3 pi halves, okay? So when we're doing this, I'm going to be starting at a -3 pi halves. So let's say here, I'm going to be ending at -pi. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, okay, which is here. Halfway in between is my 0. Halfway in between that is going to be my 1 and my -1. And there's my graph. So now on these last ones, they're going to ask us to name the graph, okay? So on these ones, let's take a look. So what I like to do is I like to draw in my vertical shift. So this is where my zeros are going to be, because it should be halfway between my highs and my lows, okay? And so my highs are all up here at 1. My lows are all down here at -3, okay? So let me just jot this down. Okay, so this is at -1, just so I can see it. These are at 1 and at -3. So that means my amplitude is going to be the distance from here to here. That is going to be 2. Or from here to here, that is going to be 2. So my amplitude is 2. Now, I can start this sine graph wherever I want to, but for sine, you want to start at your zeros. When I say zeros, I mean on my green vertical shift. So I could start here if I wanted and think about this as my sine. And let me get a, I'm going to do it in orange. I'll do it in pink, make it a little thicker. Okay. So again, I could have started here, wrong color. I could have started here and go, okay, this is going to be one whole sine from there to there. I could start here, but this would be a negative sign because I'm going down. So I could do this until I get to here. So there's a lot of different places you can start. I think I'm going to start here at this 0. Okay. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to make this a little darker. Okay. So I'm going to start here. And so this is the sine I'm going to be focused on from here to here. Okay, so a couple things I know. I know my phase shift is going to be 0 for mine because I'm having it start on the y-axis. I know I'm going from 0 to 2 pi thirds, so I know my period is 2 pi thirds. So I know period is 2 pi over b, and that is equal to 2/3. So that means my b is 3. I know my b is 3. And this 2 over here, this is going to be my amplitude. My amplitude is going to be 2. And this -1 right here, this is going to be my vertical shift. So this is going to be like my k. My k equals -1. And then again, I know that my, since I'm starting right here at 0, that my h is going to be 0, meaning it's not being moved left or right. So let's put all that together to write our equation, okay? I'm just gonna see if I can move this over a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna write my equation here. I'm gonna write it in black. So this is gonna be y equal, my amplitude is 2, and I'm going up first, so it's gonna be a positive 2. Sine, my b is 3, okay? And then parentheses x, well, it would be x minus my h, but I'm not moving left or right, so this is going to be just x, and then -1. And that is one possibility. Again, there's more than one possibility depending on where you are going to draw your sine. I'm going to start my sine here to here. I could have started here at 2 pi thirds and gone to here if I wanted to. What would change is possibly if I'm going up or down the sine of this 2. And then what would change is the 3 would stay the same, the 1 would stay the same, but in here, maybe I have x plus or minus something. Okay, on B. So on this, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw in my vertical shift, which is 1. So I know that my k is going to be 1. Let's see, my high is going to be up here at 3. My low is going to be down here at -1. So if I'm up here at 3 and down here at -1, that is telling me that the distance from here to here, which is my A, is 2. Again, I can decide where I want to start my sine. Let's say I do it in purple this time. So I could start here and go up and down and back. I could start there at a negative pi halves if I wanted to. I think I'm going to start here at my 0. But when I start my 0, I'm going down and then up. So that means my A is actually going to be a negative 2. Okay. So I'm going to make this into a negative 2 because I'm going down first. Then if I'm looking at my period is how long it takes to get one cycle. And so that is pi. And I know my period is 2 pi over b is equal to pi in this case. If I work this out, I'm going to end up getting my b is equal to 2. So my equation is going to be y is equal to, again, I'm doing the purple one, which is going down first. So it's going to be a negative 2 sine. My b is 2. I am not shifting it left or right. So this is going to be x. And then plus 1. And that's going to be my equation. So let's take a look at C and D. Okay, again, I like to draw in my vertical is going to be here at 2. So that means my K is going to equal 2. I am going up to a height of 3 and down to a height of 1. So that tells me that my A from here to here, my A is going to be 2 or negative 2, depending on where I'm going from. Okay. Now for this one, what I probably would do is I'm trying to see if I see any nice crossings here. So I can kind of see what's happening. And honestly, down the road, I would probably think of this in terms of the cosine, but we haven't learned cosine yet. So I'm going to look at where I can find some nice points. And so a nice point seems like here for my 0. And my next nice point is here. So if I'm looking at this, I ended up having, if I do this in purple, this is what I'm going to do. Well, I can do any of them, but if I'm looking at this, okay, and what I want you to see is that I've done from here to here, I've done one complete sine, and let's switch it to pink, and half. So I did 1.5. So I've done 1.5 cycles, or 3 halves. So I can consider that as my B. Okay, that is my B. Well, I shouldn't say that is my B. That's how many cycles I have within this distance. So let's be clear, within this distance. And this distance is pi. So within pi, I had 3 halves. So within 2 pi, I am going to have 2. I'm going to have twice as much. So 2 times 3 halves, or 3 cycles. I'm going to have 3 cycles. So my B is going to be 3. Okay, again, the way I was thinking about it And we honestly could probably see it because right here, I think it's going to cross nicely right here at this. So let me just kind of, I will talk about it crossing here, but if I go from here to here where there's two nice zeros that I can see, this zero is not nice, this zero is not nice. I have one whole sine plus a half within a pi distance. So I had 1.5 within pi distance, which means if I had 2 pi, I would have twice that, which would be 3. Another way to think about that is, again, over here, let me do it and I'll do it in the purple again. This looks like this would have been a nice zero. So I have 1, I have 2, I have 3 of these within this distance. Okay. And we just need to figure out what that distance is. So that distance right here, this is negative pi halves to 3 pi halves. So I'm going negative pi halves all the way to 3 pi halves. And that is 4 pi or 2 pi. So I have 3 cycles within 2 pi. That might be a little more confusing way to think about it, since this isn't nice. But if you can find 2 pi and see how many cycles you have, that is going to be your B. But instead, what I did was I thought of it as going from any of my nice zeros. Okay, so I started here. That is one whole sine, but that didn't end at a nice zero. So then I started another sine and I only got halfway through it. So I had 1.5 cycles or 1.5 within pi distance. So if I double that distance, I'd have 3 cycles in 2 pi. So again, my B is 3. Probably more explanation than you want, but I'm just trying to get us to understand. Okay, so I know that my equation is going to be y equal, and I'm going to do the purple one. I'm going to start here and end here. And so I'm starting at pi halves. I'm going up first, so this is going to be a 2. Sorry, my amplitude isn't 2. It is 1. I'm going, I don't know why I put 2 there. That's not a distance of 2, it's a distance of 1. Okay, so it's a positive 1, or you don't even need to write it, sine. And then again, my B is 3. And then because I'm starting at pi halves, this is going to be x minus pi halves. And let me just move this a little bit. And then because of that k, which is 2, it's going to be plus 2. And that's going to be my equation. So on D, looking at this, it looks like this is going to be my vertical shift at -1. And it looks like I am going 1 above that, which is going to be at a height of 0. And 1 below that is where this is going to, looks like it's going to cross, which is at -2. So when I'm looking at my amplitude, my A is going to be 1, maybe positive, maybe negative. I am then going to see about like my sine. So I noticed that from here, from 0 to 2 pi, I did not have a whole cycle. I had half of a cycle. So since I had half of a cycle from 0 to 2 pi, that means my B is 1/2. It's going to take me another 2 pi, which is going to end up 4 pi to get to the whole thing. Now I'm going to be starting at this 0. Okay, so I'm going to write y is equal to, I'm going up first, so that's amplitude of 1, positive 1, so sine. My b is 1/2. I'm starting at 0, so that's x. And then the graph got shifted down -1. And that's our equation. And we're going to be practicing seeing these a lot. So we're going to get faster at these and better at these as we go.